Hollywood didn't invent space battles or wise aliens in the 1970 seconds. The truth? The seeds of Star Trek and Star Wars were planted a decade earlier, in films most people barely remember. These weren't mega-budget blockbusters. They were scrappy experiments that dared to imagine futures no one else could. What hidden gems laid the foundation for lightsabers, warp drives, and strange new worlds? Stick around, because some of these forgotten 60-second sci-fi visions will surprise you. The Time Travelers 1964. Before warp drives and transporter beams made fans dream of distant galaxies, a little movie called The Time Travelers slipped onto screens with ideas far bolder than its budget. The setup sounds familiar. A group of scientists creates a portal to the future, expecting discovery but finding a nightmare. What they stumble into isn't a utopia, but a post-apocalyptic wasteland filled with mutants and emotionless androids. If that mix of sterile technology and crumbling humanity reminds you of Star Trek's moral dilemmas, you're not wrong. Directed by Ib Melchior, the film had a shoestring budget, yet it leaned on creativity rather than spectacle. The set designs were deliberately sleek and unnerving, and the android sequences played like eerie cousins of the later Borg collective. Even the concept of stepping through a shimmering portal would echo for decades in science fiction television. The film ends with a time loop twist that was mind-bending in 1964 and still feels fresh. Though critics wrote it off as pulp, fans of the genre saw something deeper, a vision of humanity's future that questioned whether progress truly saves us or only accelerates our downfall. The Time Travelers may not be widely known today, but its fingerprints linger on every story that shows technology as both miracle and curse. Robinson Crusoe on Mars 1964. Take one astronaut, drop him on Mars with minimal supplies, and watch him try to survive. That's the bold, stripped-down premise of Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Released just 5 years before the moon landing, this film turned the classic survival tale into an interplanetary struggle. It wasn't flashy, but it made audiences feel what it might be like to be utterly alone on an alien planet. The film follows Commander Kit Draper as he fights to breathe, to eat, and to stay sane. The dusty Martian landscapes were shot in California's Red Rock Canyon, creating an atmosphere so convincing that even today you could mistake it for NASA rover footage. Unlike many sci-fi films of the time that leaned on endless technobabble, this one leaned on human grit. That survival-first tone would echo later in Star Trek's quieter, more philosophical episodes, and in Star Wars' lonely desert stretches on Tatooine. What makes Robinson Crusoe on Mars unforgettable is its restraint. The alien encounters are minimal but powerful, forcing Draper to confront what it means to be human when you're stripped of society and comfort. Its slow-burn storytelling influenced later works that focused less on explosions and more on resilience. Long before Matt Damon made farming potatoes on Mars cool, this film had already planted the seeds of lonely, interstellar survival. First Men in the Moon, 1964. Ray Harryhausen's name is enough to make any sci-fi fan perk up, and in First Men in the Moon, his stop-motion magic was at full power. Based on H.G. Wells's novel, this film gave audiences a vision of the moon that was anything but lifeless. Hidden beneath the surface was a civilization of insect-like beings called Selenites. With underground cities that felt like a preview of the worlds Lucas would later populate with bizarre alien cultures. What makes this film fascinating isn't just the special effects, though they remain stunning. It's the way it balanced wonder with fear. The characters land on the moon with optimism, only to discover a society that is highly organized, eerily intelligent, and more than capable of defending itself. Sound familiar? It's the same dynamic we'd see when Captain Kirk tried negotiating with strange civilizations, or when Luke Skywalker found himself surrounded by hostile alien environments. Released in the same year as the early Mercury space flights, the film captured the excitement and unease of the space race. It asked the question everyone was thinking: if we meet intelligent life, will it welcome us or see us as a threat? Decades later, the underground caverns and strange societies of First Men in the Moon still feel like prototypes for the cantinas and space stations that would define sci-fi's biggest franchises. The 10th Victim 1965. At first glance, an Italian satire about futuristic game shows might seem like a stretch as inspiration for Star Wars. But the 10th victim played with ideas of spectacle, violence as entertainment, and the blending of futuristic fashion with deadly stakes, all of which trickled into the DNA of later sci-fi. Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress star in a bizarre tale where society has legalized hunts as a way to channel aggression. Contestants track each other across gleaming cityscapes, turning survival into sport. The film's pop art aesthetic, with flashy costumes and sleek architecture, made the future look simultaneously glamorous and terrifying. It was campy, stylish, and yet deeply unsettling. What connects this film to later giants is the way it treated spectacle. Crowds cheer, sponsors advertise, and personal drama gets broadcast for mass consumption. That energy foreshadowed everything from Star Wars' pod races to Star Trek's critiques of societies addicted to ritualized combat. Beyond its social commentary, The 10th Victim also showcased how sci-fi could be colorful, witty, and flamboyant, while still raising serious questions. Forgotten by many, this film was daring in its willingness to mix satire with futurism. It proved that science fiction didn't always need to be grim. It could dazzle while still unsettling. That balance of style and substance would later become a signature of the space opera genre. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. If you've ever watched the eerie opening of Star Wars or the darker alien encounters in Star Trek, you've already felt the shadow of Planet of the Vampires. Directed by Italian maestro Mario Bava, this film wasn't about literal vampires. It was about astronauts who land on a distant planet and become possessed by unseen forces. The mix of gothic horror and cosmic mystery created visuals and atmospheres decades ahead of their time. The film is best remembered for its look. Fog-drenched alien landscapes, skin-tight futuristic uniforms, and glowing spacecraft interiors gave it an uncanny beauty. It's no secret that Ridley Scott's Alien drew heavily from Bava's imagery, and the ripple effect carried into Lucas's vision of strange and threatening worlds. But it wasn't just visuals. The story pushed into territory that Trek and Wars would explore. What happens when explorers become corrupted by forces they don't understand? The theme of human frailty in the face of alien intelligence ran deep here. Though dismissed by critics as pulpy, Planet of the Vampires is now regarded as a cult classic, and for good reason. It demonstrated that sci-fi didn't need endless action to be terrifying. It only needed mood, suggestion, and an imagination dark enough to make audiences question what might be lurking out there in the stars. Frankenstein meets the space monster, 1965. Yes, the title sounds like a drive-in gimmick, but beneath the camp is a fascinating glimpse of 1960-second sci-fi anxieties. Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster tells the story of a half-human, half-cyborg astronaut sent into space, only to crash land on Earth and cross paths with alien invaders. Instead of the polished space heroes of the decade, here we see a protagonist broken, scarred, and more machine than man. A figure that eerily anticipates both Darth Vader and Star Trek's explorations of human identity in the face of technology. The film may not have been a critical darling, but it embraced themes that resonated. The fear of dehumanization, the blending of organic and synthetic life, and the unsettling question of what happens when explorers themselves become the monsters. Its aliens, though campy by modern standards, represented something chilling in 1965. A reminder that contact with the unknown often carries consequences we can't control. Shot cheaply, but with ambition, the movie leaned heavily on atmosphere and shock value. The robot-like astronaut's damaged face became an iconic image in cult circles, and while it was dismissed at the time as B-movie fluff, it now reads like a strange precursor to later science fiction icons. This film proves that sometimes even low-budget oddities can plant ideas that echo for decades. If you've ever watched a sci-fi saga where technology rewrites humanity, you're seeing the legacy of this forgotten monster mash in action. Alphaville, 1965. When French New Wave met science fiction, the result was Alphaville, a film so strange and stylish that it feels more like a fever dream than a narrative. Directed by Jean-Luc Godard, it blended spy noir aesthetics with futuristic dystopia, creating something totally unique. No spaceships, no laser battles. Instead, it's set in a sterile city ruled by a supercomputer called Alpha 60, which bans emotion, art, and individuality. Sound familiar? It should. The struggle between logic-driven control and messy human freedom runs through countless Star Trek episodes, from Spock's inner conflict to societies where technology suppresses individuality. In Star Wars, it echoes in the contrast between the mechanical dominance of the Empire and the organic, mystical energy of the Force. Alphaville wasn't designed to entertain in a traditional sense. It was a critique, a poetic warning. The film used real Paris locations instead of futuristic sets, giving it a chilling, this could be tomorrow feeling. Characters move through neon-lit streets as if already trapped in a digital dictatorship. What makes it unforgettable is the way Godard framed humanity's fight to survive, not against aliens, but against systems of control. That theme would ripple across science fiction, proving that the future's greatest enemy might not be an alien species. It might be our own obsession with efficiency and conformity. Seconds 1966. If Alphaville was about society losing its humanity, Seconds took it to a personal, horrifying level. Directed by John Frankenheimer, this psychological sci-fi thriller told the story of a middle-aged man offered a radical procedure, a chance to fake his death and be reborn with a brand new identity. What follows is less a fantasy than a nightmare, as the man discovers that reinventing yourself comes with soul-shattering consequences. Visually, Seconds was ahead of its time. The stark black and white cinematography, with wide-angle lenses and disorienting close-ups, created a world that felt distorted and claustrophobic. The narrative echoed with paranoia, secrecy, and the terror of being trapped inside a system you can't escape. It's not hard to see how Seconds influenced later sci-fi. Star Trek often tackled identity, from characters trapped in alternate bodies to androids questioning their humanity. And the idea of losing yourself to a system bigger than you? That's practically the core of Luke Skywalker's battle against the Empire. The film bombed at the box office, but became a cult classic years later, admired for its daring psychological depth. It wasn't just about science fiction. It was about the human cost of trying to escape who we are. Sometimes, the most terrifying alien world is the one inside our own minds. Fahrenheit 4511966. What happens when society decides that knowledge itself is dangerous? Francois Truffaut's Fahrenheit 451, based on Ray Bradbury's legendary novel, gave a chilling answer. In a future where books are outlawed and firemen burn them, the film imagined a world stripped of free thought and creativity. The result wasn't just dystopian, it was a cautionary tale that still feels eerily relevant. The connection to Star Trek is obvious. Roddenberry's series often tackled censorship, authoritarianism, and the fight for individuality in the face of control. And in Star Wars, the theme echoes in the Empire's suppression of culture and the Jedi Order's legacy being wiped away. Visually, Fahrenheit 451 carried a haunting beauty. The color palette was stark and unsettling, with sterile neighborhoods and hypnotic television walls filling in for futuristic architecture. Oscar Werner's conflicted fireman and Julie Christie's dual roles as both conformist and rebel embodied the tension of the time. Do you follow the rules or risk everything for truth? The film wasn't universally praised when it debuted, but it grew into a quiet classic. Like Bradbury's novel, it lingers because it warns us not just about the loss of books, but about the loss of imagination itself. Without that spark, no starships, no rebellions, no grand galactic myths could ever exist. Daleks, Invasion Earth, 2,150 amperes, D 1,966. Before Star Wars redefined alien invasions as blockbuster spectacle, Doctor Who took a bold leap from television to cinema with Daleks Invasion Earth, 2,150 amperes, D. This British film expanded the small-screen universe into something larger, darker, and more cinematic, plunging audiences into a grim vision of Earth's future. The Daleks have already conquered the planet, their rule cold, mechanical, and suffocating. Humanity is enslaved, cities lie in ruins, and only scattered resistance fighters cling to hope. For many moviegoers, this was their first time seeing an alien race, not as cheesy costumes, but as a terrifying, unified force. With their harsh, metallic voices and relentless efficiency, the Daleks became one of cinema's earliest, truly iconic extraterrestrials. Their domination of Earth prefigured the kind of large-scale conflicts later seen in Star Trek's battles with the Borg and Romulans, and in Star Wars' desperate rebel alliance fighting back against the might of the Empire. The casting elevated it further. Peter Cushing, already a respected screen presence, played a cinematic version of the Doctor. His calm authority gave the story a weight that lifted it above the television tie-in stigma. While the budget was modest compared to Hollywood epics, the film's ambition was undeniable. Destroyed landscapes, sprawling underground resistance bases, and battles against towering Dalek machines gave the movie a scope television couldn't match in the 1,960 seconds. Though it didn't break box office records, Daleks, Invasion Earth, proved something important. Serialized science fiction could thrive on the big screen. It wasn't just an adaptation, it was a prototype. The themes of rebellion, survival, and resistance against overwhelming odds became the very DNA of the space operas that followed. In its way, this film laid the groundwork for the galactic struggles that would dominate science fiction a decade later. Quatermass and the Pit, 1,967. If one film from the 1,960 seconds feels like it could slot directly into a Star Trek script, it's Quatermass and the Pit. Also known as 5 Million Years to Earth, this British sci-fi gem imagined a London construction site, unearthing something that isn't just ancient, it's alien. Inside a buried craft, scientists discover evidence that extraterrestrials may have influenced human evolution. That premise, aliens tinkering with humanity's past, would later echo in countless sci-fi sagas. Star Trek used it to explore myths and legends as alien interference. Star Wars tapped into the same mystique with the Force as an ancient, guiding power. This film gave audiences the thrilling idea that we might not be Earth's sole architects. Beyond the story, the atmosphere was thick with dread. Hammer Films, better known for gothic horror, turned their talents toward cosmic terror, mixing science fiction with chills. The eerie sequences of mass hysteria in London foreshadow the kind of large-scale panic seen in later alien invasion epics. Quatermass and the Pit proved that sci-fi could blend archaeology, folklore, and outer space into one compelling narrative. It wasn't flashy, but it was profoundly influential, offering a blueprint for how science fiction could probe humanity's deepest mysteries while still thrilling audiences. Battle Beneath the Earth, 1,967. Few films from the 60 seconds felt as pulpy as Battle Beneath the Earth, yet it carried themes that resonated with future space adventures. The story centers on underground tunnels filled with advanced technology, hidden beneath everyday cities. While it leaned heavily into Cold War fears, it also showcased futuristic machines, secret bases, and daring rescue missions that feel right at home in the worlds Trek and Wars would later expand. The underground layers, with their glowing consoles and humming energy sources, look surprisingly like early sketches of Star Trek's starship interiors. And the idea of hidden, advanced civilizations mirrors the countless Lost World episodes in Trek, as well as Star Wars' fascination with secret rebel hideouts carved into planets. Though critics often dismissed it as outlandish, the film captured an essential thrill, the belief that beneath the surface of the ordinary, entire worlds of danger and wonder might be waiting. That sense of discovery, peeling back layers of reality to reveal something extraordinary, is exactly what fuels the best of sci-fi. Battle Beneath the Earth may not have aged gracefully, but its spirit of pulp imagination helped lay the groundwork for the epic sense of adventure fans would soon associate with the final frontier. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, 1,969. A planet identical to Earth, orbiting on the exact opposite side of the Sunday. That was the bold premise of Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, also known as Doppelganger. It was a mind-bending idea, a mirror world hidden just out of sight, waiting to be discovered. Produced by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, the creative team behind Thunderbirds, the film was filled with sleek spacecraft, futuristic design, and a tone of eerie mystery. When astronauts finally reach this alternate Earth, the truth is stranger than anyone expected. The world is reversed, and reality itself bends in unsettling ways. The concept of doppelganger worlds would echo across science fiction, from Star Trek's Mirror Universe episodes to Star Wars' fascination with parallel destinies. The haunting idea that another version of yourself might exist, making different choices, remains one of sci-fi's most compelling hooks. Although it didn't find a massive audience at the time, Journey to the Far Side of the Sun showcased how science fiction could push beyond rocket ships and aliens into the psychological realm of identity and perception. It wasn't just a space adventure, it was a meditation on what it means to confront your own reflection across the cosmos. Marooned 1969. Released the same year as the Apollo 11 moon landing, Marooned told a story that felt both daring and terrifyingly real. It imagined 3 American astronauts stranded in orbit after their spacecraft's engines fail, slowly running out of oxygen while ground control scrambles to mount a rescue. Unlike the pulpy sci-fi of the early 60 seconds, Marooned aimed for realism. It was tense, procedural, and deeply human. Audiences didn't see bug-eyed aliens or cosmic battles, they saw the fragility of human life when technology fails. The film earned an Academy Award for visual effects, but its lasting influence was how it made space travel feel immediate and dangerous. This stripped-down survival narrative clearly paved the way for countless later works, from Apollo 13 to Trek episodes where crews fight to survive in the void. Even Star Wars contains echoes of its realism, reminding audiences that behind the fantasy, space is still a place where mistakes cost everything. By grounding its tension in human endurance, Marooned showed that science fiction didn't always need grand battles to inspire awe. Sometimes, the most gripping story is simply the question of whether fragile human beings can endure the vastness of space. The Illustrated Man 1969. Based on Ray Bradbury's collection of short stories, The Illustrated Man was an anthology-style film where each tattoo on the protagonist's body revealed a different tale of the future. It wasn't a straightforward narrative, but rather a kaleidoscope of dystopian visions, a society where children rule, planets of desolation, and futures where human arrogance sparks downfall. While uneven in execution, its ideas carried weight. The film dared to mix myth, allegory, and sci-fi, foreshadowing the way Star Wars blended fairy tale archetypes with futuristic design. It also mirrored Star Trek's anthology style, where each episode posed a different moral dilemma framed by speculative technology or alien contact. Visually, the film leaned into surrealism. Scenes shifted from intimate drama to cosmic grandeur, keeping viewers off balance. The structure, though unconventional, highlighted sci-fi's greatest strength, its ability to hold a mirror to humanity's fears and ambitions through stories that feel just removed from reality. Though it didn't achieve mainstream success, The Illustrated Man remains a fascinating artifact of 60 seconds experimentation. It proved that science fiction wasn't just about gadgets or rockets, it was about storytelling as a canvas for human imagination. That ethos is exactly what made Trek and Wars cultural phenomena. And there you have it, 15 forgotten sci-fi films from the 1960 seconds that helped shape the galaxies we still obsess over today. These weren't polished blockbusters. They were experiments, risks, and wild guesses at what the future might hold. Some leaned into camp, others into dread, but all of them left a mark. Which of these films surprised you the most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe for more deep dives, and remember, the stories we overlook often hold the keys to the ones we love.